Absolutely not, Mr.
Grant
Speaker.
Robertson.
We have it, the government's new economic growth agenda, a prison on every corner. That's the answer from Anne Tolley. If we just build a prison on every corner in New Zealand, we'd solve the problems. Another great economic growth strategy from the government. Mr. Speaker, the government's handling of the Kim.com case and the involvement of the GCSB in that is a circus. And we are forced in this House to endure the statement that we have to believe that our spy agency is so incompetent that they couldn't even use Google and Google Kim.com residency, and if they did, they'd come up with 6 million hits, 6 million pages on Kim.com's residency. But the GCSB, we are told, wasn't even able to identify that he was a resident. This is on the back of an operation that has been so badly botched. There were illegal search warrants. We now know there was illegal surveillance. It's been described, Mr. Speaker, as Keystone Cops. But if we're to believe just how incompetent these people are, it actually should be called John Key's Stoned Cops, because that's how badly they're doing it, Mr. Speaker. And the ringmaster of this circus is John Key. Now, once upon a time, Mr. Speaker, the casual, relaxed John Key was what the public wanted to see. But when it comes to having oversight of our security agencies, it's not a place for the casual, relaxed John Key. Mr. Key is the sole democratic check on how these security agencies operate. He is the person charged on our behalf as New Zealanders with oversight of these security agencies, and he has failed. Along with his Deputy Leader Bill English, he has failed to uphold acceptable standards of oversight over organisations that have extraordinary powers. Now, many New Zealanders will accept that we need in our society the ability to ensure that we monitor those who would act against our country. I think it's highly questionable in this case if it meets that test. But people in New Zealand will accept that. But they'll accept that, Mr. Speaker, on the basis that there is some kind of oversight, that there is somebody in government who is making sure that these agencies are acting appropriately. That is the job of the Prime Minister, and he has failed to do that. And he should be held to account for the actions of this agency. He cannot keep coming down to this House and saying he is not responsible. He is the Minister, Mr. Speaker, and he is responsible for the actions of this agency who have behaved so incompetently in this situation. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister claims that he has had 15 meetings with the GCSB this year. 15 meetings. And he says that Kim.com did not come up in any of those meetings. I find it incredible, Mr. Speaker, that a situation like this has not been raised with the Prime Minister in that role or in many other roles that he has. He couldn't even tell us today, Mr. Speaker, whether or not his own department had been involved. That defies belief, Mr. Speaker, and it speaks of a Prime Minister whose once casual, relaxed attitude is now seeing him missing in action on critical issues for this country. But, Mr. Speaker, the national government is now totally distracted and embroiled in its own scandals of its own making with John Banks and the Kim.com affair, that it is neglecting the core job that it has, and that is to help New Zealanders stay in work. And time after time in this House we get the excuses from Stephen Joyce and others. But the reality is, Mr. Speaker, that hundreds and in fact thousands of New Zealanders are losing their jobs every day as this government stands by and says it can do nothing. And 54,000 people go to Australia in the last year, and this government stands by and says it can do nothing. Once upon a time, Mr. Speaker, this government gave some hope to New Zealanders. They said there'd be a brighter future. They said, Mr. Key said there'd be higher standards of ministers. There is no brighter future. There's no brighter future for the families of the hundreds of people who are losing their jobs in Spring Creek, in Kawerau, and right around New Zealand. There is no hope for those people. This government has let New Zealanders down. They promised big, Mr. Speaker. They said that they would build a brighter future for New Zealanders. The only brighter future New Zealanders are finding is in Australia at the moment. This government is missing in action, totally distracted in its own scandals. It has no idea how to create jobs. It has no idea how to grow the economy, and it should go.
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr. Speaker, there's only something slightly more ironic and cynical about the Labour Party and the Green Party railing